Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roast.
I am Jessica Bun Bun.
Here we are with our reaction and review for Bad Sisters Season 2, Episode 8, the finale. I am both weirdly sad and satisfied at the same time. I think this is a great finale. I loved it. I loved watching every second of it, but I'm also supremely angry that the show is over.
This was so satisfying. It was so good.
Yeah, I just think they packed so much good content in here from start to finish. We had a lot of reveals, a couple of things that genuinely, legitimately floored me that I did not expect to see in any shape or form.
Angelica coming in clutch at the end there to take care of Ian. I did not expect this whatsoever, and it was 10 out of 10 satisfying.
It was so unbelievably satisfying. Listen, this is probably, I don't know if this is my biggest take because I'm already a well documented hater of Carolyn on Killing Eve. So I will just
How
say
dare you.
here, this is my favorite Fiona Shaw performance that she's ever done. And I've seen her in other things and she's very good, but just
Yes.
her with the head injury after taking out Ian when they're all having a conversation and then they mention her and she is just like, yes, it killed me. I laughed so hard at her in this entire episode.
Even though Bad Sisters is over right now, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we have Severance coming up here in January, and we are very excited about it. We are also going to be covering Prime Target. That will be over on our Patreon. We'll have a link for you below. But by hitting that subscribe button, you will not miss any of our Apple shows. We just love Apple here, and we cover shows from Apple all the time, and it really does help us out. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Okay, let's just start off here by talking about how, yes, it is Angelica who took down Ian, but it was also, despite how complicated this show can be, and yeah, it can be very complicated, I also really love how the reasoning for this was actually pretty simple, where it was just she didn't like how Grace was being talked about. Her and Grace had a friendship once upon a time. Ian really put a wedge between the two of them. And she is a character who, despite her dastardly deeds sometimes, especially with Ursula, she does.
And BB and her wife.
Yeah, no, that's true. But she really does still care, I think, about friendship, about people. And I just think having that be the really, really simple motive for her action was really justified.
It absolutely was. She has held steadfast this whole season of how much Grace really meant to her and how much she really cared about her and that friendship meant to her. And the fact that her and Grace were pulled apart by Ian and she had clocked Ian early on for some of the weirdness that was going on, it really made sense that she was the person who came in to sort of avenge what happened to Grace and what Ian did to her, not only with her friendship, but with her sisters and just to Grace and to the family. She really cared about Grace a lot.
And then you're going from that to then the other incredible reveal at the center of all this, where I'm coming out of that hilarious scene with Angelica thinking, all right, she has killed Ian. She has taken Ian out. That's it. Ian's the person in the trunk. To us eventually getting to the infamous spot in the season 2 premiere. And as it turns out, Ian is not somehow fully dead.
No, but he is the person in the trunk. And
Yeah.
that it's like he ends up slipping and falling off the cliff himself. Still not dead. This guy's got 9 lives, man. I really like that they actually decided to not have Ian be killed at all.
Yeah, I like that they didn't kill Ian. I like that Angelica, yes, nearly killed Ian, but even when she was doing it, her mind wasn't right for starters. But
No.
beyond all that, she didn't know exactly how serious her whacking Ian was ultimately going to be at all.
No, the thing that was like, why are you guys leaving Angelica by herself? They know how
Yes.
hard she got hit in the head with that ship's mast, that when they were like, okay, what are we going to do? Angelica has come in. She has done this thing. We got to get this body out of here. We're going to just clean it up. And that's how we're going to go about it. But we're going to leave Angelica here to drive Ian's car back to his place or back to Grace's place, leave the car there. She's not in her right mind that if anything happens and anybody happens to talk to her, like Houlihan, it's all just going to come out. I don't know why they didn't leave one person behind with her.
It's really weird with this show where it's a situation where if this was 90% of any other mystery show under the sun, I would be sitting here just like slamming my head against the wall with these people. But it's like,
You're gonna have the person with the head injury drive
yeah,
a car. And at first I thought they were like, okay, we're gonna take two cars. We're gonna bring Ian's car as well to the cliff, because how did he get there to slip off if his car is not there?
there is just something about the incompetency of the Garvey sisters in
I
every
know.
situation that I actually find endearing. Where it's like, if this was anyone else, this would be terrible and I would be shaking my head. But it's just like, of course, you people never think anything through. You've all got these really crazy ideas. Even you guys get all the way there with quote unquote dead Ian. And then once you even get there and you realize he's not dead, you guys have no idea what you're doing with the body at that point. You're freaking out over the stitching that's in the cow blanket, which I also found really, really funny. This was actually probably the funniest episode of this show I've ever seen, which I know it's not strictly a comedy and we're talking about life and death matters, but I really laughed a lot.
I laughed so much. Everything with Angelica was so funny. Everything with the Garvey sisters at the cliff, so
Yeah.
funny. I really like that they decided not to actually have BB go down there and be like, listen,
Yeah.
we've gone too far. At this point, we just need to do it. That because it felt like, yeah, they had gone too far.
Yeah.
And they were gonna have to actually do it. I love that the Garvey sisters have actually killed no one.
Yeah. And it's like,
Of course, outside of Grace.
it's just enough like plausible deniability for them that even when it seems hopeless for them, there's still some sort of way they're able to get out of facing like the worst possible consequences. Like if BB had actually taken Ian out, like
Yes.
it's a very different ending to this season. So it's great that that didn't happen, just as it's equally great that they all show back up with Houlihan being like, what's in the trunk? And we get to see Houlihan, yeah, she has some victories in this episode. I'm
Mhm.
not going to completely shortchange her, but it's still great to watch her suck for at least one more moment, to just her bumbling around and nobody's in the trunk and she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and to have them have that sort of conversation with her where this has been my problem with Houlihan the whole season. And
Yeah.
I've seen some of you guys in the comments being like, what is your problem with her? My problem with her is that she is still so inexperienced that she is giving away too much information. She is jumping on things and running with them without having enough information, like
Yeah.
arresting all the Garvey sisters when nobody's actually dead, but arresting them for murder. Like she's running the track before the track has been made in a lot of these cases. And so to actually have her sitting down with the Garvey sisters where they're telling her the truth of what's happened. They have to now at this point.
Yeah.
Angelica has told them what has happened. So that's just the way it is now. But then you have Houlihan on the other side revealing that she knows who Ian really is, that he was a cop. She knows all this stuff. And then they're able to kind of be like, oh, but you haven't told anybody. You didn't do anything. Like, are you protecting him? Like, you're the person who's on the bad side of things. You're trying to come at us. You are making questionable decisions too. And it is the moment that Houlihan is like, yeah, I am making questionable decisions. And I'm not the person that usually makes questionable decisions. So I need to call off this.
It was
I loved that she did that. I loved it.
every second of that was gold. This is the best instance I can think of maybe in months of watching somebody complete reverse Uno carding somebody in real time, where Houlihan gets completely owned, and yet she also acknowledges that she gets completely
Yeah.
owned and decides, oh, I'm going to try to do something about this now, because this is my ultimate take now of Houlihan now that I've seen this entire season. Yes, she is annoying at times. There's no way I can deny that, but I think she's very well intentioned at the end of the day. I think she does want to do a good job. I think she
Yes.
cares a lot about her job, and she's
Yes.
able to sort of see that other people do not care as much about these ideals, including Loftus, which makes him a perfect person to handle the end of this.
And including her boss. I mean,
Yeah.
she went to him with this Ian situation and he was like, Yeah, he's a cop. So we protect our own. And
Yeah.
if you want to be able to ever climb the ladder here at work, you're going to leave this alone. And that's the way that this works. And
Yeah.
at that point, she's just like, well, if this is the way that it works, then do I really even want to be a part of this? This is not what I thought that it was, that I was actually going to be able to do the right thing, no matter who it was. And here's my boss telling me that that's not how it works, no matter who it is, as long as it's not one of us.
Okay, let's go back in time a little bit here to talk about everything with Grace, because this is some really important stuff that happened at the start of this episode.
Yeah.
So, what we end up learning through all of this is exactly what Ian does to her after realizing, okay, she has killed someone before. And then I think Ian's like, okay, this is too big for my britches now. This is not what I got into this for. I got into this for a simple con job. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to try to find a way to wiggle around on this and then work it all to my advantage. And obviously I hate Ian. I'm glad he's getting everything that he deserved, but I'm glad that they did not make this a particularly easy thing for either Grace or the Garvey sisters whatsoever to solve, because the leverage that he had was really significant. Because even after Grace is gone, it's this idea of, I'm going to destroy your sister's legacy. I'm going to take something away from you guys that you're always going to be thought about differently, and nothing is ever going to be the same.
I'm really glad that they gave us the night of and how everything unfolded, because we had just seen Grace hit him in his back after
Yeah.
she had her admission and him turn around. We didn't see her until this episode hit him again. And then him throw her to the ground and then disappear. Like, we just didn't know how this was all coming together. We just knew she had taken out this large sum of money, that she was driving kind of erratically, and then she ended up in this crash. But all the pieces really are coming together. Her finding the phone, calling the number, it's Ian's other wife, and she doesn't know what is happening and how this is all connected. And her going to meet Ian, and Ian just being like, yeah, no, I never loved you. You're just a mark. Like, give me the money. I know what you did. I will ruin you forever. But if you want me, just go away and stay away from, your kid, sisters, whatever. Give me the money and that'll be the end of it. Grace making the decision to be like, nah, I'm not doing this anymore. I picked badly with JP. I picked badly with you. I'm not making any more bad decisions. That's it. And I think that was the right decision, even though she ended up dead.
Yeah.
Just because she told Ian what she did, it's her versus him at that point. Like, I understand she doesn't want anyone else looking into it deeper, and that could pull some stuff out, but she doesn't at that point know that he is a cop. And because she doesn't know that, not knowing that, this is the right decision to make, to be like, it's going to be you versus me. If you're going to go to the cops or I'm going to go to the cops, you can say that I did this, but I can say that you tried to get $20,000 out of me.
Yeah, and I just think at this point, especially after everything that happened with JP, she's just in this position where she wants to have a little bit of her power back, and you don't want to just constantly live under the thumb of this terrible man. So she's trying in that moment to do whatever she can so that she can visualize a future that's really her own. Like, that was the biggest thing she thought she was getting when it comes to Ian in the first place. So as heartbreaking as everything is that happened with Grace, I'm coming out of this finale just feeling this great sense of closure, where we really got this understanding of what happened, but then we get to the end of the finale and we get this really big sense of closure from all the rest of the sisters, where they're actually able to move forward now, not forget about Grace by any means, but sort of reconcile everything that happened and then try to live the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I was surprised that Ian wasn't the person that ran her off the road, that he just ended up in a situation where I guess he got lucky at some point, because he was going to end up with nothing at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, she had left, wasn't going to give him the money. He was just left with nothing. And at that point, the whole con was just going to pot. And instead, because she did die, he was able to then try to turn it around with Eva and get even more money out of it that now he's going to return, obviously, after that whole talk with Loftus. But I had really thought that he had something to do with actually running her off the road, and that it wasn't more of a psychological thing of her getting in the car, seeing him standing behind, being scared, and that it happened this way.
Yeah, that surprised me too. There were two things that I was surprised and or a little disappointed about in the
Mhm.
finale, but they're small things, all things considered. But
Okay.
that's one of them. The other one, and this is just me being really petty, and I've already vocalized this many times. I was a little disappointed in the flash forward that Becca was with Joe, who I just find boring and not interesting. I was
I was
still
happy for it.
I know you weren't. I know I'm in the minority. I know her and Matt Claflin are messy, but it's just like
That's the thing. Like the Garvey sisters have gone through so
I
much,
know.
and her and Matt, yeah, it's really messy. And to see Becca make a better choice for herself to be with someone who was a good guy, the father of her child that she did really love, and he really loves her. It's nice to see her having that choice instead.
I think to me, my issues with Joe being boring just really kind of touch on one of the other flaws in this season as a whole is just having only 8 episodes versus 10. I think it sort of shortchanged a little bit what made season one as good as it was,
Mhm.
where everybody had more time to breathe. We had larger individual storylines for everybody, and we didn't have as much of that this season. And so I didn't really get invested in any of the sort of side stories as much as I would have wanted. I know Bad Sisters explores like these big, really important themes, but there's also a part of me that just watches it as, I don't want to say a comfort show, but just something where I want to dive into this little world and experience this quaint Irish countryside and these people. It's just like I like spending time with them.
I'm going to miss spending time with them. They
Yes.
really did tie this up as there's no more at this point. The story started with Grace and the sisters. It has ended with Grace and the sisters. I absolutely loved the service that they had for her,
Mhm.
bringing her to the water where they all would swim and having her out with the flowers. I mean, it was really touching.
It was really, really touching and it was an emotional end. Like you said, everything is tied up, but this is where I want to have a talk with Sharon Horgan, who's the
Oh,
creator and the star of this show. It is her show. And so
absolutely.
I will say that, hats off to you for creating it, for coming up with all these ideas. At the same time, I am also here to say that my vision of Bad Sisters perhaps is different from your vision of Bad Sisters, where I think you are looking at this as this just sort of contained art piece that is really about exploring these very, very specific things that happen to these women in this period of time. And I respect that. And if you don't want to change that, that's a okay. But I think for me, as someone who has grown up watching a lot of these really long running escapist TV shows that are about, solving crimes and family and all of that. I don't understand why this show can't have a season three, a season four, where maybe you don't make it as personal for the Garvey sisters, but you still have them involved in something. Because as TV viewers, at a certain point, we don't really care how realistic things are. We just want to be swept away into something. And I think it would be more than fine. It's not hurting the show's legacy to keep going and going. I don't care that there are critics out there that are going to be like, oh, it's not as good as season one. Well, you guys always think that nothing is as good as it was in season one. You're the most finicky people on the planet to the point where you were like wanting to burn the Bear season three to the ground, even though it had a couple of missteps, but was still really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, yes, it's supposed to be rooted in reality, but whose reality is having even like a quarter of what happened in season one, let alone both seasons
Yeah.
of this? This show is fantastical in that way that if Sharon is like, oh, I don't want it to get to the point that people don't believe it anymore, it's like, well, we already don't believe it. This is already not a thing
Yeah.
that's happening to these sisters for 2 seasons, and that's totally okay. This
Yeah.
show is rich in storytelling. We're really invested in these characters, and could they be the sisters where things just keep happening to them? Yes. We've seen that on TV before,
Yeah.
but not done in this way where season one was excellent, season two was excellent. Yes, of course, there are some seasons where it's like, oh, season one was better than season two, like Silo.
Yeah.
But this is not that. Season 1 and season 2 were both top tier for me. There's no difference between them in that way, in the quality.
Yeah, and because of all that, there's no reason to not bring the show back. I will be happy if this is it for Bad Sisters and it's just delivered what it is. We all move on, but it is just this is one of the biggest examples I can think of a while for just a show not coming back for no real reason other than just like, I'm not sure there's any more story to tell, which I just frankly don't agree with. And I understand that's a weird thing to say because Sharon created it, and if she feels her way, I understand that. It's just I would like more of it, but I'm happy with what I got.
I think there's more story to tell. 2 seasons, there is more story to tell. You can give us 3 or 4, it'll all be all right. There's way more story to tell. There's still 4 of the sisters left. It doesn't have to be about Grace anymore.
No, and this season is still really, really popular. Like I
Mhm.
like obsessively look at the Apple TV like top 5 charts because I'm just always really curious, and most streaming services don't really give us exact ratings.
Yep.
This show was over Silo a lot of the time, and I have to imagine this show costs way less to make than Silo does, where you have to build that big structure and, have Rebecca Ferguson stay underwater for a long period of time.
This season is better than this season of Silo. I said it. I said what I said. Now what? It's true.
I can't disagree with you. I think this is one of my, at the very least, one of my 10 favorite shows of the year. I haven't really honed down a top 5 or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's just, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to miss it, but I do want to know from you guys, what did you think about the season 2 finale, this season overall? What worked for you? What didn't? Would you watch more? Let us know in the comments and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other coverage. We are doing Silo and of course Severance coming very soon to Apple
Yes.
TV Plus. And you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description below. We have exclusive video coverage there of all season of Dune Prophecy. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you here next time.